Los Angeles, the city of angels. Given the historic reputation of Los Angeles, why are people leaving California at such an alarming pace? Over 250 years ago, Portuguese explorer Gaspar de Portola established an outpost in what is now considered Los Angeles. This region had been explored and minimally settled since the mid-1500s when explorers discovered what they believed was the famed island of California. This legend of California dated back to a Spanish romance novel from the year 1510, describing an island full of Amazons. Without going into too much detail about that, because Johnny Harris did a much better job than I could at explaining the island of California, let's jump ahead 12 years to the year of 1781. 44 settlers came from New Spain, establishing a permanent settlement at that outpost. The community developed under the ownership of Spain for years to come, reaching a population of over 500 people in 1811. Then in 1821, Mexico gained independence from Spain, making the people of California independent citizens, not the subjects of a king. Then in 1846, the United States started the Mexican-American War, eventually seizing the town of Los Angeles in August of that year. But after the townspeople got incredibly upset, 300 people drove the Americans straight out of town. Over the next few years, via treaties and further battles, the Americans eventually won the war, taking control of California in 1848. This year also marked a very pivotal moment in California's history. In the region of Coloma, gold was discovered, starting the California gold rush and attracting people from all over North America in search of riches. At this time, with the influx of people, crime and lawlessness took over the town, making it one of the roughest towns in the whole of the United States. Over the next 50 years, with the development of industries and government within Los Angeles, the population skyrocketed to over 100,000 people in 1911. Much of the economy was driven by their agricultural exports due to the fair weather year-round, making farming very easy. In 1910, the town of Hollywood struggled to get access to water infrastructure, eventually merging with the city of Los Angeles to acquire that. The very next year, the first film studio in Hollywood was built. At this point, the film industry was really small, so for the next 30 years, as it expanded, Los Angeles became the de facto home of that industry. California, and more specifically Los Angeles, have always been early adopters, and this has led to the majority of their successes for the last 200 years. And over the last decade, the rise of new media blended quite heavily with the practices of Hollywood films, making Hollywood the home of influencers as well. So given that they were the early adopters of the new age of social media, why is everyone leaving Los Angeles? And is there anything that can be done about it? The pandemic hit Los Angeles really hard, and that definitely carried over to the influencer industry. Creators who relied on their network within the City of Angels were unable to actually use it because they were stuck in their own homes. Their own homes in the second most expensive state for home prices with the highest tax rates in the country. Without the value of the location, it got harder by the month to justify the expenses of living there. And looking at the pandemic data for the state of California, it just shows how much harder it got with time. In total, there were 5 waves of the pandemic in California, each one showing to be the worst in the entire country. Vaccinations, masking, and restrictions, none of it slowed down the massive 4th wave nearly 2 years into the pandemic. The contagiousness was only contained by lockdowns and curfews, forcing people to once again remain in their homes. Back to these influencers and their expensive homes with high tax rates and their inability to collaborate and meet in person, it became really clear why everyone left. This was only the beginning though. Crime rate in Los Angeles increased by 6% between 2020 and 2021, putting them above the national crime average. Additionally, the lack of support for lower income people in the state has made the homelessness issue quite bad throughout the pandemic. Presented with all that data, some residents started to have second thoughts. Comparable cities in terms of climate and culture such as Austin, Vegas, and Miami all had fewer restrictions than Los Angeles, making it more appealing to creators looking to get out and start creating. Add in that Nevada, Texas, and Florida have drastically lower tax rates, and it became a no-brainer. Even as the restrictions eased, the large majority of tech and media companies adopted new hybrid office models, allowing more people to work from home. As other people began to leave, the trend became more contagious. More people followed along. Look at Joe Rogan, the Paul brothers, Graham Stephan, and many more. Sure, Hollywood films will return with in-person shooting and more, but creators just don't operate in the same way. YouTube is Uber where Hollywood is the taxi. People need to be there to shoot a traditional movie, but they don't need to be present to make YouTube videos. It's all online. With all that data presented to you, would you want to live in one of the most expensive states in the country? Or would you rather be in your hometown or another city that's much cheaper than LA? The mass exodus from Los Angeles is a byproduct of the digital age of business. So if this is the new norm, what does it mean for YouTube creators? For a long time, YouTubers operated individually, doing everything themselves. Over the last few years, YouTube has evolved into more of a respected industry with growing amounts of income coming to the platform, making the building of systems, businesses, and norms for the creator economy much easier. From there, a lot of creators started businesses around their channels. As the income in the industry grew, creators were able to hire editors, writers, retention specialists, thumbnail designers, producers, and more. People who are able to support the creator to allow them to grow their businesses, which expands the industry further and further. Building out these businesses in a place like Los Angeles is challenging because of the high cost of living and high skill in the city. Candidates in LA would have much higher income expectations than other cities across the US. Remote work makes these businesses easier to build and helps the creator economy become more globalized. But the question I really wanted to answer was, is Los Angeles actually dying? Just because there's cheaper talent elsewhere, it doesn't discredit the machine that is Hollywood. From 2010 to 2020, 7.5 million people left California for other states, but it never really affected the population because of the number of people moving into California. So in 2020 and early 2021, these population rates took a big hit, losing over 125,000 people overall to other states in just those 2 years. So that obviously means the data is true, right? From the perspective of peak pandemic outflows, it does seem like that, but there's more to the story. The rest of 2021 and throughout this year, the population rate has increased quite a bit once again. The net increase was 200,000 people coming back to Los Angeles, doubling the pandemic losses. California has always faced a lot of adversity. Calling back to the gold rush when they had a city of crime and lawlessness, they managed to get through that and thrive afterwards. When they were claimed by the American Army in the Mexican-American War, they pushed the soldiers out. Los Angeles has an allure and a power about it. The city of dreams. The city of angels. Los Angeles is still the home of YouTube. Events like VidCon and VidSummit are still hosted in Los Angeles. YouTube still has their creator studio in Los Angeles. As the worldwide YouTube model grows, the management companies and talent agencies remain in Los Angeles, providing the networking and power needed in that city. So sure, the creators might not live there, but the power still remains. It'll take a lot more than population loss for Hollywood to go away. So the headlines about the California exodus might make you believe the state has become a place of the past, but data tells another story. If you love learning about the creator economy and the power of YouTube, you're gonna love this video I made about the biggest Minecraft server and how it took over YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe. I'm trying to get towards 50,000 by the end of the year, and there's a ton of great content coming in the next month. I will see you guys next week.